Back alongside Michael Lombardi, Dave Ross here at Circus Sportsbook. We do want to get to your top 5 NFL teams in the bottom 5. Now, the bottom 5, Michael, has not changed. And you have the Washington Commanders dead last at 32. And I just saw this tweet, Michael, that said only in D.C. can a 4-11 team have a full-blown quarterback controversy. I mean, this team.
Well, I mean, it's really about the controversy on Washington is how the answer, right? I mean, that's the fundamental question that the next guy coming in, whomever that may be, are you going to go with Hal because he's done some good things early in the year, or are you going to have to draft one and then trade Hal or keep Hal as a backup? I think that's the controversy. I mean, Brissett is a good backup. He's better than a lot of guys that have started in the league this year. You know, I've said this before. If New England would have had him in New England this year with Mac Jones, they might have won 8 or 9. They could have won a lot more games, trust me, especially some of those games where they couldn't even throw the football. So I think that's the controversy is again, who is Sam Howell? Is it the player that we see today, or was the one we saw against Philly lighten it up? Or against Denver early in the year when he was not getting hit as much, or he was getting hit, but they didn't the wear and tear wasn't on him. So, look, the one thing about my bottom 5 is it could go. There's a lot of teams that could go in that bottom 5. Washington, Carolina, the Giants, Arizona, Tennessee, but you could easily put the Jets and the Chargers in there. Now, I think Chicago and New England, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Green Bay, they're not a bottom 5 level team because they do have some strengths within their team. These other teams, starting with the Chargers on down, it's hard to, especially the Jets, it's hard to find where their real strengths are that's highlighted by the coaching staff each week.
Now, again, no change for the bottom 5. The Commanders still dead last, but the Panthers, very quickly in the Panthers, because we had this conversation, in case you missed it in the first hour, about Bryce Young, and you noted something that I think is something that the layman is going to miss, the eye level of the quarterback play. Are we starting to see Bryce Young? Is there, I don't want to say turning a corner, but some positive signs that you're seeing out of Bryce?
I've seen positive signs out of Bryce all year.
Okay.
You know, I've been disappointed in him, his accuracy, his rush throws. I've been disappointed in it, but his rhythm, his timing, all those things to me have been there. You know, I'm really impressed by the fact that he's able to stay healthy and take all these hits. I think they've done a really bad job of really helping him in terms of building an offense around him. But whoever goes into Carolina, the question isn't going to be, is Bryce Young going to be our starter? That's yes. The question is going to be, is Bryce Young good enough to sign to an extension? And is Bryce Young worth what David Tepper paid for him? Because now he's paid 2 number 1 picks for him. Because now the Bears are going to have the first pick in the draft again. And so the answer to that is no. That's when you don't second-order think. When you go ahead and trade away all the things for the player, there has to be no downside. You've got to say, okay, this guy's going to be great. And I don't think you could say he's great. I don't think you could say that at all. And so I think he could be good. But once again, you're down this road where, okay, now we got to pay him. What are we paying him?
Yeah.
And these guys, these quarterbacks are they're not going to take a discount deal. Daniel Jones wasn't taking a discount deal. And who's your competition? That's why Dak Prescott's sitting there saying to himself, you know, I'm going to make a fortune. You guys think I'm overpaid now? Wait till you see my next contract.
Oh, man, their consternation over whether or not to give Dak that deal he has already had, and people thought they overpaid then. You're right. Wait till it comes up again for Dak. And this is the going rate, and this is the question in Carolina with Bryce Young. It's the question in Chicago right now with Justin Fields. Do we give him a second deal or move on to potentially Caleb Williams with the number 1 pick? It's fascinating for these bottom feeder teams. Most of the teams that you have in the top 5 do not have these quarterback issues that we're talking about. That's why they're in the top 5. But one team notably fell out of your top 5 this week, and I want to start with a team that's not in your list, and that's Kansas City. Michael, I know if Patrick Mahomes sees this, maybe he'll say, oh, good, that they're starting to write us off, and maybe they'll use it as motivation. Why did KC drop out of your top 5?
Well, because KC's numbers are just horrendous now. You know, everything that I do is not have any subjective decision to it. It's all based on numerical numbers, based on the 18 categories that I think go towards winning. And the Chiefs defensively have started to slip in some of those areas, which has forced them down. right, which has forced them. That's why San Francisco's still ahead of Baltimore. Well, you could say, well, Baltimore beat them last week. Well, San Francisco's numbers are still pretty strong, and so are Baltimore's. Baltimore's numbers have been strong all year. Same thing with Buffalo's numbers have always been good. Obviously, the turnover takeaway.
Yeah.
But for Kansas City is in a really unique spot because they want to run their offense. They want to run the quote-unquote Mahomes offense, which is these explosive plays up the field. Well, they're not there anymore. They're really slow offensively. And they get slower when they go into 12 personnel, when they put another tight end to help their tackles. See, their tackles can't pass protect. So Mahomes is under constant pressure. So what's the answer to helping your quarterback when he's under constant pressure? We'll leave a tight end in, we'll chip him, and get him out in the route. Well, you think Kelsey wants to do that? You think he wants to do that? Of course not. That's why he threw his helmet. That's why he was so mad. He was tired of chipping and going out in the route late. He's the man.
Right.
He wants the ball. He's got Taylor there watching him. He got to get the ball. And so now I'm not chipping. She doesn't even know what I'm doing when I'm chipping. So, and so now they put the other tight end in, and now they've got 12 personnel on the field, and now they're really slow because Kelsey can't run anymore. The other tight end can't run anymore. He's in there to block. So now it's easy for the defense to say, okay, where's the ball going? That's why you watch all 22 of the game, and Mahomes is, by the time he kind of feels like he's getting pressure from the tackles, and now he's got to move around and buy a second look, which he loves doing, but that takes away from the overall offense. They couldn't run block to save their life. I mean, they got stuffed at the line of scrimmage by the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders took it to them. It almost was like the game was played in Las Vegas, like the Raiders had the snap count advantage, not the Chiefs. And then defensively, for all the good that we talk about Kansas City, and they're a good defense, don't get me wrong, but when you can run the ball, when the Raiders had 2 rushing plays and got the ball in scoring position, they didn't tackle well. I mean, Nick Bolton's back, and so, that was the case. People can run the ball on their edges. If you what they do is you formation Chris Jones away from where you want to run the ball, and then you've got a pretty good chance to run it if you're disciplined enough to get to it. The reason most people have not been able to run the ball on Kansas City is because they're behind in the game.
Yeah.
When you're behind in the game, it's hard to run.
And Josh Jacobs didn't even play for the Raiders, to your point, and they still, in the critical downs, were able to get it done with White late in that game to salt it away in Kansas City. I like your list because, again, you mentioned even though the Ravens beat the Niners, they didn't leapfrog them from 1 to 2. But Miami does enter the list into the top 5 after beating Dallas. But it's not because Miami beat Dallas. It's because the numbers bear it out, correct?
Correct. And Miami has been going upward all year. Miami's upward mobility has been related to their defense, not their offense.
Right.
Their offensive numbers there was a time where Miami's offensive numbers were on par with the Rams of 99, the greatest show on turf. That's not the case anymore. Their numbers are trickling down, especially when you can get them in a third down game like Dallas did. Dallas got him in a third down game.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if the fullback hangs onto the ball, Dallas might have won that game from the 1-yard line. I mean, that was a close game. It went back and forth. When you've got to kick, what do you kick, 3+ 50-yard field goals?
57, 54, and 54. It never been done in the history of the Miami Dolphins, 3 field goals over 15
and you win the game. I mean, so that's the point. I mean, again, it goes back to why did we win, why did we lose? You won because your kicker was really good that day. That could have been easily 3 turnovers.
Yes.
That could have been 3 turnovers where Dallas would have had great field position. And the kid made them. I credit him. Tremendous. But that's the margin of error we're talking about. And if it isn't for Miami's defense, I don't think they win that game. That's why Miami is such a formidable opponent moving forward, is because of their defense. Their defense. Now, look, did you notice in the game? Everybody goes after Xavier Howard. That's who they're going after. And so this week in Baltimore, they're going to look where Howard is, and if Vic wants to play man, they're going to go after him. Nobody's going to go on Ramsey's side.
Yeah, that is fascinating to see because Howard, obviously he's coming off injury, so he's not the same guy. But when you got Ramsey, that's the difference that Jalen Ramsey makes in that defense. And again, that feels like the marquee matchup this week, obviously, for AFC supremacy is Baltimore against Miami here. This one in Charm City. So it'll be very fascinating to see the way the Ravens try to attack them defensively. Dallas not good enough to get it done, but those field goals by Jason Sanders, certainly the difference in the game.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.